very difficult to understand what is happening right now in Chile in lithium if you are an international investor, even if you are Chilean. A lot of people have called me today and yesterday. Okay, what was this RFI result? What they are saying? If we do not rush in this, we will lose the window,
Yeah.
and it will
Think
happen
that
the same
may
what
have
that
already
happened to.
happened. Already happened. Welcome to another episode of the Deals podcast, where we analyze trends in commodities related news and deals to help investors uncover opportunities in mining and metals. Today, we're going to talk about Chile and new opportunities for lithium and lithium stocks. I'm Paola Rojas, and I'm here with my co-host, Lucho Saenz. Hello, Lucho.
Hey, Paola, how are you?
Good, I'm good. And we have the perfect guest to help us break this down. We have Daniel Weinstein with us, and he's a mining lawyer. He's fully focused on mining law. He's a partner at Urso Abogados. He guides foreign companies entering or developing projects in Chile, from explorers to producers. He's got 2 decades of experience, led 20 billion transactions, and he's based in Santiago. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, very nice to be with you again. If I am right, last time was, and let me know, was like January or February 2023.
Yeah, so it's
It,
been a
it, it
bit
was
over.
May already. Time flies. In any case, a lot
Right.
of things have happened in the lithium market in Chile in the last year and a half. A lot of things.
Yeah. So we're gonna cover all of that. The main topics that we want to cover is go through that recent history, the changes that we've seen. It's a follow up on that podcast that you just referenced, and we're gonna talk about the outcome of, or the current outcome of the first expression of interest process, which is the news that just happened this week. The role of DLE, the Direct Lithium
Yesterday, yes.
Extraction, yesterday, yeah. And whether we believe that this time these policy changes are gonna achieve the goal of getting more investment into the sector or not. So make sure you stay until the end for our insights on that. Before we dive in, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to let us know that you like to see more episodes like this one. Let's get started. Lucho, take it away with the first topic.
Yeah, I mean, this is very personal to me. Okay, I mean, I was very involved in the early days of the new era of lithium in Chile. You know, back in 2009, 2010, I had headed a company that was involved in the Maricunga salar, which is one of the most important salars other than the Atacama in Chile. And started developing a project, brought in a strategic partner, and when the first attempt at putting a sale out to the market was out there, it was tendered out on an international tender. SQM won it, then lost it on a technicality. We were actually runners up. It wasn't awarded to us. There's a lot of words I can use to describe that whole process, but I'm going to hold back because, I've been told to. But hey, I'm skeptical, right? I mean, I was in a consortium with, South Korean POSCO and Japanese Mitsui, and, and a project that, is potentially still going to be the next project, the lithium project developed in Chile. That was back in 2012 or something like that, more than 10 years ago. So I'm a bit skeptical. That's my comment. There's no question. There's no question in the comment. It's just a throw out, throwing it out there. So Daniel, any comments on that?
Well, I think that it's natural to be skeptical. We didn't have any meaningful change in the policies or in the regulations since 1979. So for 45 years, everything has remained the same. In fact, the laws, the regulations still remain the same. A lot of movements in the last year and a half, but the regulation remains the same. There are some attempts to change it, and we can talk about that later. But it's natural to be skeptic. There has not been any meaningful movements for decades, except for the two companies that are authorized to extract lithium, SQM and Abermail, that have been doing so for a long time. But besides that, there has been no change, no new players allowed to extract lithium. So it's natural to be skeptical. Having said that, I'm optimistic. Probably more than the last time that we spoke, because a lot of things have happened in Chile in the lithium market, in the lithium policies, in the lithium regulations, in the last year and a half, things that didn't happen for 4 decades. So there is a lot to talk about in this episode.
Yes, fantastic. So if we go to the recent announcement that we just mentioned, so the announcement is a bit general and kind of let's say from a very wide perspective and general perspective. So what are insights of what's your interpretation of the subtext, what we are seeing, like the letter of the announcement, and in addition to that, what you have read between the lines?
Well, the first things that I must say is that the announcement indeed is generic. It's basically an statistic, but it was exactly what I was expecting and what I have been telling my client to expect since April 15. April 15 was the date in which the announcement of this process was made, of the request for interest process, RFI. That's the name of the process. And if you read the basis of this process, then if you read the subsequent communications and the Q&A of this process, what it was announced on July 9th was exactly what we have been told that it will be announced. I know that there was and even from people that lives in Chile and that are specialists in the lithium market, that are very involved in the industry, they were expecting more. They were expecting something else. But the government was very clear about what to expect. And I think that once you understand well what was the aim of this process, you kind of understand why outcome of this process, that was the letter that we are talking about, this general statistic, is so abstract, so general.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, we just take a step back and look at the lithium market, right? I mean, brines are the place to be. I mean, these wild swings in price do not help orderly markets, right? So, I mean, if you want to be in lithium, you want to be in brines, which means basically Bolivia, basket case. So we can't really go there. Argentina, basket case, not a basket case. Basket case, not a basket case, right? I mean, right now it's looking very good, but there's uncertainty. And then you have Chile, not a basket case. At least for the rest of mining, not a basket case. So I mean, this is we've often talked about Chile's opportunity to get back in the game in lithium, right? I mean, it has the best salar in the world, Atacama, where you have two significant producers, and you have the opportunity of a stable jurisdiction and a country with a lot of infrastructure, history, et cetera, stability. So this is a breakthrough, but clearly it's a matter of time to market. I mean, I'm very bullish on lithium prices, frankly, and I'm disappointed and surprised by the recent fall in prices. Neither here nor there. I think over the long term, there's going to be a lot of demand for lithium and not enough supply. But it's all about time to market. I mean, how long do you think this process is going to take? Because in the end, the only project that is actually advanced is the Maricunga project, which is a strategic project. It doesn't fall under these other, this RFI process. And in fact, now Codelco owns the Maricunga project, so it's in the hands of the state, right? And my understanding is that Codelco's running a process to get strategic partners in there. That's going to be the next project. What we want to see now, and I think what interests everyone in the lithium market, is where's the next wave of projects coming from Chile and when? Considering projects are in very early stages. I mean, what's your feeling, Daniel, of when we can start seeing tangible progress that's going to give the market an idea of when new lithium from Chile is going to be coming out?
Well, the first thing, very briefly, is something that you mentioned. Lithium is something different to the rest of mining in Chile. This is only due to one reason, not geological, nothing else. It has a different regulation. Copper, gold, silver, they have one regulation. And then lithium has another regulation. And that regulation has been responsible for us, has the largest lithium reserves in the world, 9.3 million tons, losing the first place as the main lithium producer in the world. We lose it, I think, in 2016, 2017 to Australia, and now Australia is producing the double of what we are producing. We're producing half of Australia. We're the second, and if we don't take measures, probably soon we will be the third or the fourth, being Argentina and Argentina or China, the number 3 or 4. But well, uh, there this new wave of lithium project, I will say that it has like three different paths. The first path, the first prong, was like the agreement between Codelco, the national copper company, and SQM, the main lithium producer in Chile. So this was one pillar. Unless you prefer, will not refer to it because it is completely separate to the other pillars. Then the other pillars are like the Maricunga, Pedernales, and five salt flats that NAMI have interest. It is also a different process. You are right. Codelco is now looking with an investment banking, Rothschild, for partners in Maricunga. Codelco already owns mining concessions in Maricunga. Now, part of the deal with SQM, what the SQM will give the concessions that they have in Maricunga, and last year they acquired. Well, it was announced last year, but I think that it was consummated this year. They acquired the project that you were mentioned that you work in, Salares Blancos. So they have a big position in Maricunga, but that will go again, and that's like the second part of the strategy. And then there is like this like the third pillar that is basically everybody else. Because in Chile there are 69 official sulfates, 69. There are more in true. There are other deposits that are not sulfates, but they have lithium. So okay, what will happen with the 60 sulfates that are not Maricunga, Pedernales, the one of Ename, etc.? And that is what we're talking about, the RFI process. This request for information process was not a process to assign contracts from the government. Remember that for lithium,
Yeah.
besides a couple of exceptions, you need a special contract granted by the government to exploit lithium, something that don't need in copper, in silver, and whatever. So, what was the aim of this process? The aim of this process was to ask to the companies, okay, let us know to the government what project you are interested in, what studies do you have, what's your company, does your company have money, have experience, and the only objective of this process, the only purpose of this process was for the government to gain information firsthand about the lithium market, the lithium projects, and the best areas. And therefore, the process ended on July with this statistic. That process is ended, the RFI process. What will happen now? New process, a process that is already informally started, but now the government, with the information that it receives, will determine which are the most promising sulflates slash companies, and will start to negotiate. Probably would be some kind of bidding process with them for granting them special operation contract COs. And then I'm going to answer your question. When we could expect these first special operation contracts to be granted? As per the government said, it will be the beginning of 2025. That is, everything is going fine. Okay? In some cases, the government says that they may decide that an indigenous consultation is needed, and the government will them they will they will kind of make it, and that will delay, of course, the process in those areas where the government deemed that indigenous consolidation is needed. So basically, I think that next year we will start seeing this special operation contract granted. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that that will be fulfilled. What's my concern? My concern is that, like, when you are receiving information, you have to study the information. Then if you decide to open a bid for a certain area, you have to review all the bids. Then you have to negotiate with the bidders, and then you have to negotiate with the person or the company that you will grant the contract. And that's already difficult if you're a private company. If you're a private company, let's say BHP, Anglo, whatever, and you are running a bid for something, that's difficult. But imagine that now the bid will be running by the government. So it must fulfill so many rules, and rules that cannot just be breached or end or amended. So I think, and also consider that the resources, the human resources at the Ministry of Mining, the people in charge of this, although I know that they put all the best efforts, they will receive a huge wave of requests, applications, and information. So probably my concern is not that on 2025 we will not start seeing special operation contract granted. My concern is, okay, how many? How many? In this process that just ended, the government received 88 applications. The word is not applications because you are not applying for anything. Basically, you are telling the government, okay, I am interested in this area. This area, I am also the owner of the mining concessions. Being the owner of the mining concession was not a requirement, and that is probably we're gonna speak about that later. Probably for me, that's the biggest obstacle in all this strategy and process. The biggest obstacle by far. So now you have so now we, from this 88, some companies made more than one. So let's assume that, I don't know, like 50 companies applied. They applied for 36 different areas, 16 salt flats, and 20 places that are not officially declared as salt flats. So that's a lot of information. And probably, and again, in a private company, maybe it will be much easier if it will be a private company running this process, because probably if there is a case where it is obvious who should be the winner or the awardee, or who should be awarded the contract, maybe the private company will say, okay, we'll not do all the bidding process. We will negotiate with you. But as it is the government running this process, you cannot just skip steps. You have to do all this. Yeah, I mean, like, from those 88 applications, you can bet. I mean, like, I don't know the exact number, but let's say if negotiations or bidding processes are started with for 20 or 30 of those applications, I think that will be a good outcome. And it would be sad but it would be sad for all the other ones. There is a solution that we can talk about later, but indeed, probably I think that although this is a very big step for Chile's market for lithium, some people will be disappointed.
Full disclosure, I'm actually involved in a couple of the bids that went in.
Oh, really?
Talking about, yes. And I mean, I was invited to help out because of my experience, etc. In the market in lithium and in the market in Chile, and very grateful to be involved. Once again, but when I take a step back and look at the whole process and look at it afterwards, right, and look at the press release from yesterday, I don't see that the process of, and you refer to this at some point, Brett, I mean, in different ways, of vetting the companies was appropriate, right? I mean, see, I'm talking from my investment banking days, right? I mean, bankers are very pragmatic. We're there to make money, right? And what's better than making money? Making money quickly, right? That's the objective. So we look for when we run these processes for selling an asset or strategic review of an asset or a group of assets, or we talk to a government about a privatization, and for us it's very simple. I mean, the qualifications and the certainty of execution. Okay, and if you want to add to, in something like a nationalization, privatization, which you could actually say this is similar to that, right? I mean, who does someone own the asset? So I mean, there are three things here. I mean, do you own the concession? Yes. Do you have the capacity to build it? Do you have the support? And what's the certainty of you, committing to that? And how do you structure yourself around that? And it sounds very simple, and it's not simple at all. Okay, but when you cast such a wide net as the one that as they've done here, all you're doing is creating a bureaucracy around a process that is going to be very difficult. You want to run something that is transparent, but there has to be a level of subjectivity there. Okay, and I don't know. I'm finding it very difficult to see light at the end of the tunnel in this whole thing, as much as I really want to see more projects moving forward in Chile like they have in Argentina.
Well, you are right. There were no requirements to apply in this process. For example, it could be someone that doesn't have any idea what lithium is, and I could have submitted my application for an area which is owned by, I don't know, BHP, Anglo America, the army, whatever. I mean, like, I could do whatever I wanted, basically, with some exceptions, and nobody will, and there was no any requirement of the company, of the experience, of anything. The explanation that the government will give you for that is, well, this is not a process that you are applying for a seal, for a special operation contract. This is a process in which we, the government, want just to have the maximum amount of information for designing this second process in which we will do a bid, will negotiate, etc. So that the explanation. So it will be a second process that is starting, is now ongoing, but it hasn't started formally. But then your concern is very valid. Because, okay, let's say that the government receives information of a very promising company that owns the mining concessions for salt flats that has a lot of geological potential. If you are in investment banking, you will just call this guy and say, "Hey, come here, we will negotiate." I don't know exactly what the government would make in those cases, because probably because of all these rules and bureaucracy, it will have to open a process for that area in which probably the guy that we all know that should won will apply, but then anybody else could apply probably. And that creates a bureaucracy that means a lot of human resources, the people that, because you have to study, because when you are the government, you have to justify your decisions. So I'm completely sure that people that doesn't have any chance to win, if there is a bidding process, will apply, and when they not win, they will demand an explanation why they are not winning. Okay, the thing, why the big international company is winning and not myself, but I'm the small guy. That's unfair. That's how things work. And as I mentioned you, that is probably the thing that I believe it will be like the main challenge in this second process, that that due to the rules that the government must follow. First thing, it's not very clear still which rules the government must follow, because this is something new. So, for example, the government will say that at the end of August they will issue a decree with the requirements that this contract must have. So right now, if you ask me, okay, what are the requirements of this contract, or what are the requirements that the companies must have to sign one of those contracts, we don't know. We can guess something, but they have not been announced. They will be announced in 1 month and a half. So indeed, I agree with you. I agree with you, Ucho, that will be a lot of bureaucracy, probably a lot of things that in the private In the private world, you will not do it because it will be a waste of time. You will have to still do it now. And I really hope that the government, when they have to choose among being super transparent and fully democratic on the one side, and on the other being, of course, transparent. Of course, that you cannot choose not to be transparent, but to be more business oriented. I really hope that they will choose that. Although it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult decision for a government to, because there are like so many people that doesn't have any chance, but they still apply and they will still want to apply. That will be a thing. That will be a thing, and that will be a thing that probably will delay this process in a way that in the private world will not have been delayed.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a. I mean, we still have to see, as you say, we still have to see how this goes, and it's not clear. But it is. We'll leave the opinions to the end. We said we would give the final impressions, but I wanted to comment on two things. So we're gonna do a brief comment on DLE, direct lithium extraction, and communities. I've got most of my experience working with lithium companies, both in Argentina and Chile, has been with brine deposits, but we have worked with companies working towards establishing or starting a new DLE technology. This is something new, relatively new. I mean, there are many separate technologies, but it is still something that is new, that has a lot of potential benefits, and that's why the market is trying to get there, and that's why Chile has put it kind of a condition of this new wave of work or activity. So we, in terms of DLE, because of that situation, how do you think they plan to work around or to evaluate this? Because it's, if the world doesn't know, how are they going to assess these new ideas, these new technologies? What do you think that's the concept?
Well, what you mentioned is very interesting. 80% of the applications received in this RFI process uh, promised to use DLE. Again, the word is not application, and probably the right word is not promising. It's not promised because this process is not binding, neither
Yeah.
for neither for the government, neither for the companies. Having said that, still is a precedent that 80% of the companies of the applications say we will use DLE. Part of the national lithium strategy says that for developing projects of lithium in Chile, you have to use DLE. And that was like very, very well established and very clear in the first communiques of this strategy, April last year, then July. Then there has been a little bit more flexibility that it may not necessarily be like now. Like if you start a project, probably you can work a couple of years with a different mechanism, but afterwards you have to use DLE. Just a small note: there is no law or no regulation that obliges you to use DLE. So this is a policy of this government. So this government it will be changed in March 2026. So maybe the next government will say it's not necessary to use DLE, or maybe there will be a law where it says not necessary to use DLE. Having saying that, I believe that already all the companies are having their mind and in their plans to use DLE in the projects, at least in the medium and long term. How they will be assessed? I don't know. It will be difficult to be assessed. DLE is by large an experimental technology. We are lucky. This is something interesting. Many of the companies that are developing DLE technologies are right now in Chile, and many of them applied in this again apply this process
Yeah, express their
because they
interest.
want to test express their interest in this process because they want because they and something else very interesting. Many of those companies they acquired mine concessions because they want to be not only to provide technology but to be the owners. of the salt flats, so they have full control of what they do with their technology. So it's very interesting, like they are seeing Chile as a test platform, and that's very interesting. And that's very interesting. How it will be assessed? To be honest, I don't know. It's very difficult to know. Tend to think that probably something that they will look at it is how serious is the company economically, how they are, what are the resources, and how I will do it personally. And again, I'm not a technical. So what I will do is like, okay, if this company has a lot of has resources, has good people, it seems that they are developing an interesting technology, they have patents and all that. Well, they should be good. And if they are willing to spend in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars or even more, probably they believe in their technology. So sometimes the best predictor of how successful something will be or not is the skin in the game. And these companies are putting skin in the game because they're not only providing technology, they are willing to finance to finance and to build the projects. So I tend to think that the companies are optimistic about the development. They will be putting skin in the game, and well, if everything is doing right, Chile will be not only the best place for developing lithium projects, but also be a hub for lithium technology, and that will be very interesting.
I mean, I think just a comment on that, Daniel. In the Maricunga project, we actually had POSCO with their technology, and the technology was ahead of its time, and had fantastic recoveries, and they were tested with the Maricunga brine, right? And POSCO really pulled out of Chile, so to speak, because of that failed Seoul bid. I mean, they just couldn't understand how that didn't work out, right? So, but a lot of these new technologies have not been proven at an industrial scale and are managed by startups, right? So they're not well funded. I mean, some of them are. And even some of the ones recent, I'm not going to mention any names, but no, they have not performed the way they're supposed to, and they are funded. It's not just a matter of saying, "Oh, hey, that technology looks good," and what their expectation is great, right? I mean, when you apply one of these technologies, and if the technology hasn't been proven and it's not backed by someone with the financial capacity and technical capacity to bring it forward, it could be a very expensive experiment for the government, well, for the company, for the shareholders, for the government, for the communities, and for the environment, right? So I mean, you've got to be very careful. I mean, the groups that are successful in this technology are groups like POSCO that have invested a significant amount of money in research and development and pilot plant and industrial level testing. But Aramid just announced that their DLE technology is producing the first lithium carbonate in Argentina, right? I mean, you've got Rio Tinto with it. These are companies that are substantial. And I'm not sure if you see the depth of that in the RFI process, right? So I mean, it's a great gathering information tool, but from there to an actual transaction, that's a long gap there. And I mean, I think it's something to consider. And it's important what you say. I mean, it's not a requirement, but it's a suggestion, right? And who's suggesting it? The guy that's going to give you the permit, right? I mean, that's a pretty strong suggestion, right? So just to keep in mind.
No, you're right. To first things, I believe that most likely a project that doesn't come with a DLE technology, they will not receive a special operation contract. I mean, like that could be written or not be written, but what I believe is that
Yeah,
they will
I
not
agree.
they will not
Yeah.
receive the contract. So there are some rules that not necessarily are written or are not necessarily binding, but you know that they are there. What's one of them? The first thing. The second is that In this process, in this fight process, you didn't have to prove anything. I mean, like, I could say that, yeah, I own the best technology of DLE in the world. And then I didn't have to prove anything. And in fact, my technology is just to grab some cotton, put the brand, and nothing else. So indeed, the government will have some more work to do and more research to do in this second process, the process that will start now, the process where things are getting real. Having saying that, there is no time for example, proving the technology, because how this process will be, if the government is aiming to start granting the contracts in 6 months, there's no time, and everybody could bid. There's no time like to okay, show me, let's prove it, because that takes time. Interestingly, both Codelco and Enami have opened other processes not related to this process that we're talking about for testing technologies. And they have been testing for some time technologies, from startups to big companies. There are big oil companies or service, or those companies that provide oil services to the oil companies, that they are now seeing like, well, maybe in 10 more years, oil will not be how big it is now, and they have switched to lithium. And many of them are already in processes with Codelco and Enami. Both Codelco and Enami are national companies, uh, for testing their technology. But these are separate processes, completely separate processes. So for this process in particular, the one that will start now and the one that we're talking now, there will be no time for testing. So indeed, until some extent, it will be an experiment. Although, as I mentioned, the companies that are selected will need to devote a lot of money to develop the project, to get the permit, to get the people. So at least I tend to think that the companies are optimistic. And again, like, how many people have been optimistic and then at the end of the day they fail. But at least when you have skin in the game, it means that you believe in your product, and that at least give a bit of optimism to what will happen. The good thing is that probably I will say in 3 months, 4 months, we'll have some news, because if everything is going according to the chronogram, in 3, 4 months, these negotiations or bidding processes will have started, and then in 8 more months, probably we'll have more to talk about, because if everything
Yeah.
goes according to the chronogram, the CEOs will start to be awarded. So
Yeah.
we'll have
Yeah.
opportunities.
So if you're Daniel is gonna come back to talk about that. So if you wanna hear about that when in a few months, make sure you like, subscribe, and do all the things that people do here, so that you don't miss the new discussion. What I wanted to quickly talk about is we mentioned, and Lucho mentioned before, the situation that we're seeing in terms of the price of lithium, like, has plummeted, and it has affected so many of the lithium stocks, that some of the ones we hold, some of the ones that we like. It's a good time to be buying, but we don't know if it's the bottom, really. I mean, I feel it is, but as we've said before, we never know. But what I'm thinking is, the government is trying to do this whole process that takes so long, and it's doing that at a moment that things are so depressed. So did they miss their window? Is it worth doing all this, super elaborate, long, when the market is falling down? It's something that we should consider. It's a tough time for lithium and lithium stocks at the moment. So
Yeah.
we will, I think we'll go into our final impressions on terms of where we see this going, what this could mean.
No, I listen. I mean, this has been great in terms of just shedding a lot of light as to opinions of someone who's very involved in the process. Daniel knows it intimately. I mean, I could argue that I know it fairly well because I've been involved in the process in Chile for a long time, but certainly I didn't have the detail that you have provided to us today. So thank you for that. I mean, I leave with a lot more knowledge, but maybe with a lot more questions than answers, to be honest, in the end. And that's by no means your fault. I think it's the Chilean government's fault. But then again, I always like to point fingers. But, this is what, the third or fourth attempt by the Chilean government over the last, decade and a half to promote the production of lithium. And after today, it sounds probably even more complicated than I had anticipated. So, I mean, what do you think? I mean, why is this time different, in your opinion? Just in a few words, why is this
Yeah,
time different?
yeah. Well, I think that indeed there has been some attempts by other governments, but they were attempts, like real attempts. For example, I remember that Sebastián Piñera, who was right wing, a businessman, he made a bidding process like in the last 2 months of his government that was annulled. When you make something in the last 2 months of your government, doesn't mean you're not very interested. This government, which by the way is the is a left wing government, has been the government that has made the most serious attempt in the last 40 years to change things. And it's kind of again, you will not be expected. Probably you will have expected that Sebastián Piñera, right wing businessman, will do something, but they didn't do something as deep and as elaborated as this government is doing. So the first thing that I must say is that this government, for me, has been the government that has done more for the development of the lithium in the last 4 decades. First thing. Second thing, if I would be the president, something that I will never have been, I will never be that. But if I will have the power, that will not the formula chose by the government will not be the formula that I will choose. I will do things much, much, much easier. I'll give you if I have the full power and you give me 5 minutes, I give
Yeah,
you the
you
whole
wanted
formula.
to
And
talk about that project. I think that's relevant.
exactly. So again, 1 year and a half ago, I remember when I talked with my friends, people in the industry, we all say, lithium in Chile will never be grantable or concessionable. I don't know what's the word in English. The same as copper, gold, silver, because people tend to believe that the lithium should be controlled by the state, because if the state controls the lithium, Elon Musk will come here to Chile and will buy the and will build the Tesla factory and all that. So in short, well, if you give me like 5 minutes to do this thing, well, super easy. I will just erase a couple of articles of a given law, and I will make lithium to have the same legal regime than all the other minerals, because
That's
there is
basic.
no reason. There is no one reason. There is no one reason. And now talking about this bill. So in May of last year, right-wing party, they presented the first bill, but only supported by them to make lithium grantable. And I think that project didn't continue the process. But then in November of 2023, transversal group of congressmen, right wing, center, left wing, presented a bill of law to make lithium grantable. And if you see the people, if you see like the parties behind these people, you have the vote in the Congress to pass this law. And then this law has been moved, bill of law, in Chile, and I think it's the same in all over the world. When the government is not sponsoring a bill of law, it moves very slow. So it has been moving slow, but surprisingly, every vote that has been taken in that regard to the moment, it has been favorable to approve that law. Small votes, small votes about the voting this, that, but every have it. So I think like if you ask me, and just looking at the numbers and what has happened in these 6 months since this bill of law was presented, their votes are there to approve this bill of law. I don't think that this bill of law will be approved within 1 year or 2 years. because of all these intricacies of the bill of laws when they are not sponsored by the government. And of course, the government will not sponsor this because the government has their own plan. But if you ask me, I believe that that in 2 or 3 years, this bill of law will be approved, and lithium will have the same regime as copper, gold, and all the minerals. And why this is attractive? Because as I mentioned, not not all the companies that are interested or that are even capable will get a special operation contract. So there will be companies that will be disappointed. But if these companies wait 2 years, 3 years, they will have they will have the right, without the need of any special contract, to exploit the lithium. So if you just, I'm very optimistic about that. Very optimistic, not because I'm like naturally optimistic, but because if you see how the Congress has voted this and who is supporting this, the numbers are there.
Two things to say to that. An expectation is a resentment under construction.
Could
You
be,
said
could
that
be.
in the last
Do not
episode.
have to. Okay. However, I say it all the time. It's a beautiful phrase. But also, I mean, because this expectation is being built on politicians having common sense, and that's a hell of an expectation. So
Yeah.
let's wait and see.
Yeah.
Let's wait and
I mean,
see.
Let's wait and
it's
see. But
obvious
the
to
votes
me.
are there.
Yeah, but to me that's something that should have happened like 40 years ago. So lithium should have never been on a separate framework. That's been ridiculous from the get-go. And having had so many before and even today, having people coming to me and said, oh, we're looking for projects and we like brines because it's just easier to identify them, to find them. And some companies would come and say, oh, I want to try and find in, without knowing, I want to try in Argentina and Chile. And then I had to go and explain, like, look, we can try in Chile, but it's got all this, and you open the floodgates of all the complications, and this is okay, no, then never mind. So this is an improvement, certainly an improvement, and it's going to be interesting, and we're gonna talk about this again. You're gonna come back and we're gonna give an update on what happens, and if people are interested to hear that, make sure that you come back and you subscribe. I think it's going to be a very big challenge, and I hope it happens. But I'm not very optimistic because it's been too long. I hope I'm wrong, as Lucho said. I hope I'm wrong with when he's very like pessimistic about something. I hope I'm wrong. All right.
The other day, like many experts were invited to the Congress to give their impression about this new bill. Among these experts was a friend of mine. He's a lawyer that is almost 90-year old. He was the lawyer that drafted the decree in 1979, which made lithium non-grantable. And you know what he said? He said that in public and in private. He said it is a mistake now to have lithium in a different regulation, to have non-grantable lithium.
Yeah.
But he's saying also it was a mistake back in 1979.
Yeah.
Because it was keep grantable, because it was supposed it would be for nuclear use and all that, and it was never that.
It was never
It
that.
was
Yeah.
not necessary.
And this, yep.
I'm very
Yeah.
optimistic. I'm optimistic about that in the long term.
In the long term, yeah. All right. I think we've got a long episode, so this is going to be a long listen. But I think it's got a lot of interesting bits. Do you wanna go do a quick wrap up, Lucho, so that we can finish?
No, listen. I mean, thank you very much, Daniel. As I said, I mean, you brought a lot of information, a lot of food for thought, a number of questions that are going to be responded over time, over the next few months. Despite my, probably negative tone and challenging questions, if you will, I am very hopeful that something changes in Chile, right? We need more lithium. We need more lithium projects. We need more investment in lithium. Chile is one of the premier addresses for mining, and it should be a premier address for lithium. So I certainly hope that this is a start to, even if it's a slow start, a start to a change that is going to look for future production of lithium in Chile. So thank you very much once again, Daniel, and we look forward to having you on the podcast again so that we can talk about advances and hopefully celebrating at some point the
Yeah.
law, the change in the
Yeah,
constitution.
no, thank you, Lucho and Paola, for having me in this program. It's always a pleasure to talk about lithium, especially with international investors.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. All right, we've gonna end it there. So thanks for watching. Thank you, Daniel, for coming in. Thank you, Lucho, as always, as to be my partner in crime with this. And if you enjoy this episode, you'll enjoy the one that we did with Daniel last year. So we're gonna add that one in the final cut. So, all right, bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.